Is Robert Van Cleve here? Robert Van Cleve, the chairman of Balfour Beatty. And now the act you've all been waiting for, our headliner. They tell me that he turned down a full scholarship at the Frank Lloyd Wright Institute to be a walk-on design student at Ball State University, wherever that is. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our very own Wild Bill Homrighausen.
Thank you. Thanks for that stellar introduction, Tom. I just want to say before I get started that nobody can prove anything of what he said. But I'm happy to be back here for a good charity, Our Friend's Place. Big hand for them. And this isn't part of my act, but I got to tell you, that's a tough act to follow, Patrick Stanley. He did great. Now, a lot of people talked about change in 2009, but I got to tell you, a lot of things didn't. There were a couple things that didn't change for me in 2009. First of all, I didn't get that big comedy contract. You know, it's a shocker, right? And even worse than that, People magazine snubbed me again for Sexiest Man Alive. Yeah. It's an honest mistake, though, I think. I think the guy's, working on his, cover story deadline late at night, probably hasn't slept in a couple of days. He's typing along and hits a couple of wrong keys, and it comes out Johnny Depp instead of Bill Homrighausen. So, that's an easy mistake. I've made it myself a couple of times. But it's not a big deal, but that's the kind of stuff that makes me want to shoot Andy Warhol. So, now, there were some things that did change in 2009, some big things. And probably the biggest one of all is this whole merger with Balfour, right? And I remember the day that Tom told me about it in dramatic detail, because it's one of those things that you remember where you were and what you were doing when you heard it, right? It's like when I heard Siegfried and Roy were retiring, Who doesn't remember where they were when they heard that, right? So, a couple of months ago, I noticed that Tom was acting a little more erratic than usual. And I thought, well, maybe he's just having too many ding-dongs for breakfast again. So I thought, well, I'll go talk to him and see what's going on. So I went in his office and I said, hey, Tom, you got a minute? I want to ask you something. He said, sure, come on in. So I sat down, and of course the door closes behind you because he's got one of those automatic door things in his office. And, a lot of executives have those. They have a little button under their desk. Well, Tom's got one like Alfred had on the Batman TV show. It's like he's got a bust of David Spaw and the head tilts back, and there's a little button on the inside. So it's pretty cool because you're sitting there and you think, well, maybe Commissioner Gordon's going to come in. So I sat down and I said, hey, Tom, what's going on? And something's on your mind. He goes, yeah. He goes, Bill, looks like Spaw Maxwell's going to merge with Balfour Beatty. And I said, think again, Doris, that's not going to happen. And he goes, oh, yeah. He goes, it's going to be in tomorrow's paper tomorrow. I said, okay. I said, does David Spaw know anything about this? And he said, sure. He goes, David Spaw told me that Nostradamus predicted the whole thing. So I looked at him and I said, Tom, I like you a lot, but you can really be cruel when you're sober. So one of the first things that I thought about was, when you do one of these mergers that big companies, people get moved around and they change offices and things, and I thought, if I leave, who's Tom going to throw his empty whiskey bottles at the end of the day? So, we kind of talked through the whole thing, and the whole conversation was like an after-school special, except I'm not a tattoo artist and he's not a figure skater. So I started thinking about the merger with Balfour, and I made the mistake that I think a lot of people did when they first heard that. They thought it was pronounced Balfour Beatty. Balfour Beatty, okay? So I thought, Balfour Beatty, I said, that's not good. That's not good at all. I do not want to work for Ned Beatty, that guy from the Deliverance movie. That would be worse than when I signed up for intimate laser hair removal at Walmart. Not too good. Well, as it turned out, it's Balfour Beatty, so that turned out okay. But then I realized I didn't really know a whole lot about Balfour Beatty, so I thought, well, I'll do what I usually do. I'll just go over to my desk and I'll punch it up on the gadget and, figure out what they're all about. So I did that, and I went over, and before I got to that site, there was another site. It was about the Code of Hammurabi. I don't know whether you know about that, but it's a guy about 3,000 years ago that wrote a bunch of laws. And one of them was particular to construction, and it says, if Spaw Maxwell Balfour Beatty builds a building and it collapses and kills the owner, then Robert Van Cleve shall be put to death. So I was happy that we've progressed in 3,000 years and kind of gotten away from that, but it seems like some of the contracts we get from our owners are still kind of based on that. So I finally got to the Balfour Beatty site, and as it turned out, it's actually a real construction company. Who would have thought? So they're located in England, which is embarrassingly close to where the Titanic was built. And England is one of those places where the whole country's an island, right? And I'm not sure they've kept up with the rest of the world on everything. I'm pretty sure they still use those phones like on Andy Griffith where you have to crank it before you can talk, right? So it could be like this. It could be, Sarah, this is Tom Roland over at Spaw Maxwell. Can you get me Robert Van Cleve down at the diner? Yeah. Otis and Aunt B, you're at it again. So, who would have thought that a company from Texas would merge with a company from England? Think about that. We've got chicken fried steak and Willie Nelson, and they've got kidney pie and Engelbert Humperdinck, right? So, I think we know who got the better end of that deal. Now, one of the offshoots of this whole merger thing is that we're going to move into the Balfour building down at the end of the tollway, which is it's great. It's great. Tom says we're going to move on March 12th, same as Hitler's birthday, so we got that going for us right off the bat.